All right, Leo, we went way overtime last time on Ubuntu, and I don't know that we got all of our thoughts about Ubuntu and 2204 LTS. So,
we did not. That little ending segment was like 5 minutes, and I had way more to say about it. But yeah, I knew we just weren't going to fit it, so I didn't even bother.
yeah, so we carved out a little bit of time here in this episode, and one thing that we did not talk about was if we kept it or not.
Oh, that is true. The moment of truth.
And
So
I did, Leo.
What? I don't believe it.
No, I kept it.
I don't believe it. You're a QT guy from top to bottom. I don't believe it.
I am, but I did, and it's been pretty great. Really, no, I'm. There's some features there that are kind of great, and it does get out of your way.
Yeah, it does do that.
Honestly, I like Plasma, but one thing that I think might be done better is the overview stuff.
Oh,
so overview of workspaces and overview of applications that are running. I don't know. That always really impresses me, and I guess the way the super key can kind of interact with all of that, that's one of the things I really like about GNOME, and I wish could carry over everywhere.
Yeah, I think you can kind of hack it together.
You can do some of that stuff.
On
you
Plasma.
Can do it. You can totally do it in Plasma, and you can have like hot corners and stuff like that too, which I also like. So I mean, yes, you can do a lot of that stuff, but I think it's just done really well in GNOME.
I think it is too. I think that is one of the biggest reasons that GNOME in general is slowly starting to win me over. If you listen to the top of the show, you know it's not there yet, but there are just some things about GNOME that over the past, decade since GNOME 3 and now 4 has been out, it took that long, but I'm coming around. I'm coming around.
I think it's better than it once was, and so, I'm giving it a go for a little while anyway. Alongside Endeavor, because we're testing Endeavor, so...
Yes, we are.
I installed it alongside, so I have both on the laptop, so they're both there, so I decided to keep it.
Yeah, okay. So before I get into my spiel... I did too. It is on my T450S. I did have to make room on my framework, so it's no longer there. But on my T450S, I think it's just going to stay there. I don't know that I'm going to remove it off of that machine. It is good. It is very, very, very good.
Nice. I think that's some high praise. We test a lot of things, so the fact that one of them sticks around for a little while, I think that's impressive.
Well, I mean, you got to give them credit. I mean, Ubuntu is probably the biggest distro if you look at derivatives. Yeah. There are so many Ubuntu derivatives that have gotten popular as opposed to... There are a lot of derivatives of a lot of different distros, but I think Ubuntu's derivatives, including their flavors, right, have gotten huge popularity.
That's true.
So you can't fault them for that. They do make an exceptionally good base system, but again, standing on the shoulders of giants. Let's not forget,
for sure,
Debian here, which is where the majority of all of this comes from.
It is, and that's the upstream, and a lot of Ubuntu developers are Debian developers as well. Yeah, so that's the reason that stuff gets put in there.
Remember your history, so was Mark Shuttleworth. So it made sense. It made sense.
It's a very symbiotic relationship, I'll call it.
And so it is. It is this huge cycle of life that just keeps turning and turning and turning until you end up with more polished defaults, I guess we could say, when it comes to Ubuntu and its derivatives.
Yeah, and well, I mean, obviously they'll throw in a few proprietary bits too.
Well, of course,
which Debian's a little more free, if you will, from the Libre, and open standards, whereas Ubuntu is going to make things a little easier and give you some of those, like video codecs and stuff like that, right?
Just check the box. Just check the box.
So, I mean, I guess it fills a niche there too. So
it definitely does. So,
I before we get too far, like obviously Snap is a technology that Canonical is promoting, and I fully think they should. That's their technology. That's their thing. It should be there. Why would you not have it built in?
Well, it's front and center. Keep it that way. I don't fault them for that at all.
Yeah, I mean that's part of a business, if you will. Promote your own product, eat your own dog food. So that's there. Although, me personally, I don't use it a lot. I use a lot of flat packs because I don't know. They just work for me.
Well, again, in the history, right? Like the first time that Snap was really kind of debuted, it was debuted to be the backbone of IoT stuff.
That's true.
Well, I take that back. And the phone stuff.
And the phone stuff too, yeah, exactly.
But that started with clicks and kind of morphed into Snappy and then Snap and then, right? So there is a lot of lineage there. And the focus was not the GNOME calculator. It started to take that on as we realized we could use it for that kind of thing. But by and large, it was for phone applications and it was for the command line. And at least at the command line, it excels at that. Snap is one of my favorite command line runner utility Docker style type things. It's amazing.
It's not container too much, but like it does make things much easier, and I fully support that. Personally, and I think it's coming a long way for desktop applications too. It's nice that it's there by default. It gives you access to a lot of software, and that's easy for people to use. It's just, but even, here's the point I really want to make, is even though Flatpaks are not the primary focus, they work very well.
Oh, it's super easy to install. It's even got a little plugin thing for the software.
And so they will update themselves, whereas in GNOME software, whereas like anywhere else, Flatpaks don't do that. You have to go tell it to update. And so I think that's those, like, I know that's GNOME, pushing that stuff, but it's not stripped away. They could have done that, right? Totally could have done that. Said, no, you need to use Snap. Snap is our technology.
Yeah.
You're not going to use Flatpaks here. But they didn't. So, and the fact that they kept it simple is good. I think.
Yeah, Snap is front and center, obviously, as it should be. But Flatpak can be made a first-class citizen. And I think that is the biggest thing that matters. Because I had a couple of things, right? I mentioned Touché at the top of the show, which doesn't exist in Snapcraft. So if you want it, you either have to compile it yourself or get it from Flatpak, or I'm sure there's an alternative way to get it. But I mean, I just found it easier to just install the Flatpak and use it. It was way easier that way. And the audio player I talked about at in the very first episode, Amberol.
Amberol, yeah.
That, again, is another, but it's a GNOME app, and GNOME apps are usually always published first to FlatHub, and then, they make their way into repositories and things like that. I'm sure it's in the Arch repository. I didn't check on EndeavourOS, but I'm sure I will.
I bet it is. If it's not, it's in the AUR, right? Like everything, it's in one place or the other.
Right, and it's not the only app that is not a Snap, but is a Flatpak. So if you're very close to the GNOME ecosystem and you're going to be using a whole lot of GNOME software that isn't bundled in by default on Ubuntu, you're going to need to add Flatpak. You just don't have an option. Those things are not easily accessible most other places in the Ubuntu ecosystem. So yeah, that was, as I was using Ubuntu, I found out pretty quickly that there was just some software you couldn't get. And that's okay, because, I mean, I'm a fairly technical person, so I don't care if I have to shove Flatpak in there and make it work. That's fine. But speaking of snaps, the Firefox Snap I've got good news.
Yeah, no, actually, yes. I'll agree with this. Very much so.
Very good news. So in April, when we first started installing Ubuntu, because we just figured, use it the whole break. We did. I got it on both my T450S, where it still lives, and I have it on my framework, or had it on my framework, where it no longer lives. But Firefox took a good chunk of time on that cold start. And if you remember, I reboot a lot because either dual booting purposes or sleep is not great on the two machines that I have. So I reboot a lot. And that means that I saw cold start times a lot, which brought me to the point where I just got to record it. I got to know how long it's going to take. So on my T450S, and we're talking the original version of Firefox that was shipped, which was still in the 90s, I think, took about 11 seconds on my T450S, which has a 5th Gen i5, and 12 seconds on my framework, which had an 11th Gen i7. That doesn't even make any sense.
No, that's newer. It took longer.
And I used that extension, the one, I forget what it's called, but it's the extension that you can add that times everything when it starts up. So it was like 4 digits of milliseconds. So I knew how long this was taking, down to the 1 gajillionth of a second. I don't know what it is, right? But about 12 seconds on each machine. In July, this latest, up to Firefox 102, I believe.
Yeah, 102, yeah.
Was when we saw this market increase of startup time. On cold boot, 7 seconds on my T450S, 6 seconds on the framework. That makes a little more sense because the framework has more horsepower. But that's almost a 50% increase in both cases.
Yeah, I don't think those are honestly terrible times, because I think if you compare it to the native applications, they can be upwards of that time too. I mean, like maybe you're like a couple of seconds off, honestly, which is still pretty close.
Oh, right. And these are not scientific numbers, so right. take them all with a grain of salt. But I mean, approximately a 50% increase in speed is, while not scientific, still fantastic.
Yeah, that's huge. I can point to a couple of different technical things if you're interested.
Always.
One of them is the compression algorithms used, right? So they've been fiddling with those to make improvements there. The other thing they did was like compiling different ways, and compile flags that get applied to these things as they progress. So software coming out of the gate is obviously not going to be as optimized as something that you keep adjusting. So naturally, the first iterations of this, even though they were around for a little while,
right,
they hadn't been quite optimized yet, and so they keep making some adjustments and a lot of improvements. And I think you'll continue to see improvements, which is why I don't think they should abandon Snaps personally.
Oh,
because, no. And even for the desktop. So keep making improvements, keep pushing it out there, keep making it the first-class citizen. It's the product that they produce and promote. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts. A lot of people say they should abandon it. It just doesn't work.
Oh, no,
But I disagree with that.
No way. We need more avenues to get software, not less. More. Do keep in mind that a lot of the timings that you're going to be seeing on these startup Snap thingamajigs are very app dependent.
Right.
Bitwarden has not seen the market increase on startup time that has been seen on Firefox. Right. Bitwarden takes about as long as it took for Firefox originally to start up. It takes about 12 seconds, and that's a lot.
Yeah, and so without checking, I mean, have they done some of those things that they did with Firefox? Right.
And I assume
probably
they
not.
Haven't.
Right. They probably have not. Yeah.
But I don't want this huge increase in startup time on Firefox to give you the wrong idea about a huge increase across the board.
Yeah.
It's very app dependent, so do keep that in mind and don't get too upset when one app takes a good long time to start up when your Firefox is already running. I don't know. So just keep that in mind. But I think across the board, they are getting slightly better iteration over iteration over iteration. So it's good. I think snaps are gonna get there.
They are.
Flatpak, they do have a little bit of an increased startup time depending on the app, as opposed to like natively installed, like end user whatever app. But they by and large are much faster. So I do tend to default to Flatpak a lot for a lot of stuff, and that's one of the reasons.
It's the compression. Ultimately, there's still compression.
Yes,
like
exactly.
in a Snap, right? I mean, that has not gone away. Whereas you look at a Flatpak and they're kind of large. They're chunky little fellers.
Yeah, they just splat that stuff right on your disk, man.
So, I mean, there's the trade-off right there, right? Do you want to consume all the disk, or do you want to consume all the CPU? I mean, those are your choices, and they've gone different directions. And I don't know that either one of them is wrong. I guess is. Right? They have their use case.
Exactly. So not straying too far from the Snap stuff, I do want to, and I suppose, before I even get into this, I suppose this stuff is going to be fixed in the .1 release that's coming out in a couple of days. So I don't think you're going to run into this after you hear this, but it happened on multiple installs, multiple times, and it's kind of weird. So I made a few tweets about it, but like the Snap Store trying to update the Snap Store, but the Snap Store can't update the Snap Store while the Snap Store is running, trying to update the Snap Store, right? That whole thing. The Snap Store doesn't install itself, though it should, and it has after the initial update. But here's the deal, right? Like, it seems reasonable, because a software that needs to update itself has to close itself before it can actually update itself, but it was refusing to. And the only way, unless you dug in, yes, I could fix this going into the terminal, took less than 30 seconds to actually fix it on a separate install. So I know for sure.
Yeah.
But if you don't know terminal foo,
or
if you didn't Google it, you didn't care enough, you had to wait 14 days for the Snap to do a force refresh on the Ubuntu software store center before it would actually update the first time. And that was just really weird to me, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me why.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's running, right? So it can't shut itself down. I don't know. Like, they didn't have a mechanism for that. I don't know.
But the deal was, like, you go to the Ubuntu section, or the update section, and then you see just one update left, which is the one that it's complaining about. It's the Ubuntu store, software, whatever. And then you click update. Like, that should be the trigger. That should be the one that says, all right, well, obviously he wants me to update only one app, and to update this app, I must close myself and then relaunch myself. And like losing your place and then getting back to the update tab one time ever is a price I'm willing to pay.
Right.
And I suppose everybody would be willing to pay that, because every day from now until 14 days later,
it lets you know.
It will complain at you.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, when you opened up the little notification dealio and you clicked on it, nothing happened.
Yeah. Other apps will do that too. I mean, like your Firefox Snap, right? If you left it open for 14 days and like an update was due, it'll complain at you daily on that one too.
Yeah. To be clear, I closed the Ubuntu software thing. I rebooted multiple times. This was not a, if you just did the right shimmy and shake, it'll update for you. No, it would not.
Yeah,
I tried for all 14 of those days. I let it run out. I was curious to see if it was going to fix itself or not, and it did fix itself. So, it's not like this would have been a problem that would have haunted you forever. It did take care of itself. So, it's not an egregious thing, but it just made me laugh, because every day it was like, hey, 8 days left, 7 days left. Hey, guess what? 24 hours left.
So that probably is going to be fixed on the. I haven't gone and researched this myself. It probably is fixed. So
I am 99% sure it will be fixed on that image because it only took one update of the software store, Ubuntu Software Center, for it to just alleviate itself. And I've seen more updates come down for that package, and it never had another problem. So,
and it was a known problem, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but
it was, but it was funny.
So getting those rolled out is tough.
Yeah, I bring it up mostly because it's funny and not to just trash on Ubuntu. It was hilarious to me because it did a whole thing. Like, it was a whole saga of, will it be today? It was not today. No. Will it be today? It was not today. It was the very last day where it force refreshed, and it did take care of itself. But it did make me laugh for 14 days. That was pretty much it. Like, little things that I know are already solved. But, just weird. So I do have to say that Ubuntu, we're going to end on a high note.
For sure.
I have complained for the longest time that my T450S, without like ripping out every extension possible, does not run well on GNOME. And I would consider an i5 integrated graphics as low to medium performance, right? And I was getting good performance with all the extensions removed on NixOS and Void Linux. If you go back to those history episodes, that's where I talk about that stuff. But finally, GNOME, with their triple buffering support.
That triple buffering is nice. Yeah.
Has made it as smooth as Nix and Void, even if you consider extensions on the T450S, 5th Gen i5, just integrated graphics, and I'd say it's 95% smooth. It very, very few stutters. Even when doing the little 3-finger swipe up where all the windows go, pow, you know? And that's the sound effect, by the way. When you do that, you should add a sound and it goes, pow.
Pow. Anyway, as comparison, right? So I'm running this on a older i5 than what you have. It's a 3rd gen i5, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. So those animations, I don't have to turn them off. I can use the animations, and so it's nice. It really feels good. It feels smooth. There aren't a lot of stutters. It works.
There are not.
It works great on my 3rd gen i5 with 8 gig of RAM.
Jeez, man. Yeah, I'm on, it was much more RAM than that. I can't remember. 16 or 20 is weird on that particular laptop. But it was impressive just how much better GNOME performance has gotten iteration over iteration over iteration. And that's the other thing that is helping me warm up to GNOME. When it was a stuttery mess in like 38, 36, a 3 dot, well, whatever it was. 338. The number. Yeah. It was terrible. That was the biggest reason. But now that's taken care of. I like the gestures. I like Wayland. I like all that stuff. So it's coming together, and Ubuntu has centered themselves on a version and backported the triple buffering thing to make that even better. And so I think 2204 is going to be just a really good all-around distro that newcomers, you can recommend it to new people and all of that kind of good stuff. And it will just stand the test of time like most of the LTSs before it.
I agree. Very solid.